Good morning. It is February 13th, 2021. What are we doing and why are we doing it today? Let me just start out with a confession. This is probably the worst day for me to try and film a project because outside my window they're doing lake cross. About a football field away, there are cars racing up and down the lake, and they changed the track this year, so I'm just totally distracted. But we'll just carry on.
This is the cover that you saw in the previous thumbnail. This is the inside, and this is the outside. It is a photocopy of a master sheet that I did a couple of days ago. So this cover is made out of a business size folder, and all I did was cut down the outside. I thought I left this perforated part where the bar goes to reinforce it, but apparently I didn't. It feels like I did when I feel the corner, but I didn't. So all you're going to do is you're going to cut these off, and you're going to use the body of the folder. You might have to cut it down. You can use a cracker box, and if you're going to use a cracker box, get a scrap piece of chipboard and reinforce it. You know, Cheerios boxes are indispensable for this kind of thing because they're nice and wide, and you can cut them down. This would be a little bit too narrow for this, but you could cut it down, cut the tabs off, and then cut the bottom of it off and reinforce your spine. It's important to reinforce your spine. And then you're going to need something to cover it with. So you can use dyed paper. Two examples of dyed papers. You can use a photocopy of a master board that you've made or a master sheet, and for this cover, this size, you'll need two of them. There's another master sheet I made, so you'll need two master sheets. They can be the same, they can be different, whatever you have on hand. You can also use, which I did here in this accordion fold ephemera holder, you can use the cover from your 12 by 12 paper pack. If you don't have any of those things, if you're just starting out, get some book pages, get an old business letter, you know, any scrap paper that you have, and glue down. You can collage, you can just rip. Do I have an example of collaging? I think I do, but I just don't know where it is. Yeah. So you can do a very simple collage. This was just strips of book paper, and I glued them down, and I left the white space. In this example, this is a photocopy of it. I like to make master boards, master sheets, and then I like to photocopy them for reference, because if I really like them, I'll use them again. If I don't like them, I at least have a reference copy. So this one, I just did a simple basket weave, over, under, and then I would just cut the excess off. Make two of these, and you have enough for your cover. Or you can also make a master board or a master sheet with anything you have. Paint. These are stamps. This is a stencil. This honeycomb and this wavy green is a stencil. You can make a master sheet and then use that. So the next thing you're going to do is cover the inside. You've covered your outside. I will be putting a strip right here to cover the gap. I intentionally left the gap because I wasn't sure where I wanted my spine. And for this book, I decided to offset my spine, which is right here. And it's made out of, oddly enough, a Cheerio box scrap. So you'll make your spine, and then you'll do your inside cover, making sure that if you have extra paper on the outside, that you wrap it around, and that your inside cover covers that fold over. So this is going to be folio style, rigid spine on one side and curved spine, which I made out of the score marks on the file folder. So let's set this. Oh, one more thing. Before, you can do it before or after. I did it before. So before I put the inside paper down on my reinforced part of my spine, I punched all my holes for a Midori style binding method, and we'll get into sewing bindings in another episode. But you can see right here and up here are all my holes to do pamphlet binding for my signatures. So there's 4, and 4 should be plenty for how many signatures I'm going to have. Now, you say to me, well, you got all this extra space. We're going to make use of every square inch of this for our master reference journal. And for our master reference journal, where did I put my signatures? Right where I could find them. I used a file folder so that I can use full-size sheets of 8.5 by 11 folded once, which gives us 5 by 7-ish signature. So I used book paper. That's my outside page. Then the next page I used tracing paper. You'll see why I did it this way in a second. I used tracing paper, and that's like probably 3 by 5 or something like that. And then I used a piece of copy paper, and I made, this is like one signature, well, the whole thing is one signature, that I made a couple of groups. So I think I made 4 groups of these and just clipped them together. There you can see. I just clipped them together for the time being so that I knew how thick each signature would be. When I showed you the signatures, I showed you, that I had used different types of paper. Why did I do that? Well, the idea for this master reference book is to take your brand new products, whatever you might have that's brand new, and I have brand new dye. So let's use this. This is happens to be Distress ink, and it is Rustic Wilderness, Tim Holtz product. So you're going to take and sample your product in this little reference book so that you can see what it looks like on different surfaces. So all we're going to do is just, in this case, we're just going to do some ink blending. Whoops. We're just going to do some ink blending so we see how it looks on the different surfaces. You can see that it looks different on a book page than it would on translucent tissue. Let's demonstrate that. So on translucent tissue, it's going to be a translucent color. And then this was our copy paper. And then you're going to write in there what it is. So this is Distress ink. And what did I say it was? Rustic Wilderness. And I bought it in 2022, but it's a 2021 color. So now I know what it looks like. I know what it is. I could do a second application here, and I could spray water on it and indicate it here. That's what this book is for. Or at least this section of the book. if I have a new stamp, I got label stamps, which you will see in an upcoming project. Where did the stamp go? Oh, it must still be on the block. Yep, sure is. Didn't have to go through all that. So, I got a new stamp, and I want to see what it looks like. So what I'll do is I'll just take a reference print and do basically the same thing. I'll make a reference print. Let's do it on, let's actually do it on this one. I'll make a reference print. I'm not going to be able to get it all the way over to the copy paper. And tip for those of you who think you're not good at stamping, think you don't get things lined up or whatever, the best thing you can do for yourself is not pressure on your stamp, but waiting long enough to lift it for the ink to actually soak in. And that's another reason to do this reference book. If we timed it out 3 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever, we would be able to say, oh, it soaks in at 5 seconds, pretty good on book page, but on tracing paper, it's going to be a little more wet and it might need drying time. So we would make a note. The third thing that I would do for reference, and I'm not going to pull out the embossing stuff and all that stuff. You've seen me make a reference card a couple of episodes ago, back in January. But what I would do is I would put a stamp down, all the same stamp. I would put a stamp down, and whatever my embossing color was, I would make an embossed piece, and then I would write on here pearl, pearl embossing, and I would use the same stamp and make another one that says black, another one that says whatever color. And in this section, I would just keep this section. It's a pretty big section. I would keep it for notes. I could do drawings. I could do instructions for certain kinds of elements. And in the succeeding episodes of this master journal, we're going to do exactly that. I promised you that I would show you double gluing, which is something you might want to learn how to do and practice for your books. And double gluing is where I use glue sticks because they work really well. So all I do is take 2 book pages, square them up on the short ends. I don't worry about the long ends because you're going to have a cut edge and a ripped edge. You're going to put them together like that. You're not going to put the cut edges together. You're going to put them opposite each other. So I square it up on the ends, and then I take my glue stick, and I hold this. I do about a third. I hold this down and I make sure I get the edges really well. And then I take my wet glue, which is where I get my precision to get all my corners and my edges glued together. And I just go around the outside, and then I run a little bead on the inside. And then this handy dandy tool that I told you about, this spatula, I carefully nudge the glue up to the edge and down the side. Then I come back in and I kind of do a corner kind of deal to get the glue off the piled up glue off the edge. And I just smooth it out, smooth it down. I take any kind of flexible card or straight edge, and I smooth it down one way, and then I turn it down and smooth it down another way. Then I turn it this way, peel back the other 2/3 and do the same thing. And what you end up with when you do that, hear the difference? They're a lot more sturdy. They're not as dense as regular cardstock, but they're a lot more sturdy and they're great for making pockets. Let's review. What did we do this week? We made a cover, and we reinforced our cover with a piece of cardboard where we're going to fold it. You're going to do that reinforcement whether you're using a legal folder or whether you're using a chipboard and making just a bifold book. We put together some packets of pages that are all the same kind. I'm going to say you should start out with 4 sets of these pages. A book page, tissue paper or tracing paper. Tracing paper is a better choice because tissue paper and tracing paper do the same thing, but tracing paper will hold up to folding a lot more. A piece of plain copy paper, so that you have something to write on as well as test on. And if you like to use watercolor paper or Bristol board or even craft paper, you might want to add another set of papers. So the way this goes together, because I didn't actually take this apart and show you, the way this goes together is your inside sheet is going to be the sheet that you write on. So a book page, your tracing paper, and your plain paper to write on. This can be notebook paper if you want to use notebook paper. And then on the inside, see, they're all stacked together like this. On the inside, if you want to put craft paper or Bristol paper, that's fine. You want to make at least 4 of these, and you want to stack them inside each other so that you have repeats of the same sample sheets. And then we will eventually bind this, but for right now we're going to leave it loose. Just clip it together and keep it all together. Just lost my clip. The next thing we learned how to do is double glue to make these heavier pages. For next week, we are going to learn how to make pockets, and I have an instruction sheet that I wrote up on a piece of book page, and I'm going to put it in a Dropbox so that you will have an instruction sheet that tells you where the steps are, where the folds are, and all that. And that makes a pocket that stacks 3 ways. Now, all I've done here is just show you an example with a backing paper, show you an example with just the type from the book, and this is also the type from the book. So 1 piece of paper, 3 separate pockets, and then this pocket would either be in the back or you can leave this side and you will have a slide-in pocket. We'll go into that next week. Also next week we're going to learn how to bind. So for that larger note section, this one, we're going to learn how to bind a simple pamphlet style next week. And all it is you're going to need something to poke holes with, a heavy sewing needle. And by heavy, I mean, let's see if I can, by heavy, I mean like a darning needle, not a hand sewing slender needle. You can use an awl, like I said, anything that's gonna, poke you. I would not use anything with a blunt tip. So scrounge around the house, find something to poke with. And then also you will need some heavy thread. The easiest, cheapest thing to use is dental floss. If you don't have any, $1 at the black and yellow dollar store. So we'll learn pamphlet binding next week. and that will prepare us for putting our signatures in this part of our cover in 2 weeks, I guess.
Screenshot that materials list. You'll need your finished cover. You'll need your one signature with your pages of different sizes. You'll also need another signature that's just plain paper, because we're going to use that for upcoming projects as we learn how to do different things. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm going to try and keep these to about 18 minutes. So whatever I can do in 18 minutes of film time is what I'm going to do, although we ran over a little bit today. God bless you, and I'll see you real soon.